All right, you guys. Hey, this is really important for me to talk about today. It's actually talking about being content. And growing up for me, I struggled in this area a lot. A lot of society struggles in it. Um, but I wasn't content in what God had given me. And God, I didn't understand, why do I have to live with my grandmother? Television shows me all this stuff. Um, and of course being younger, and then I was overweight as a child. Now, don't get me wrong, cuz I love every inch of my body now. I had an eating disorder because I wasn't content on who I was. I actually thought I was really ugly when I was younger. I hated the way I looked. I wasn't content in anything in my life. But I actually wrote in one of my poems, uh, basically talking about, in the beginning of the poem, it says, I told him, being God, I'll never give my love away, because since the day I came in my mother's womb, even my mother took advantage of my love, birthing me so selfish because she longed for love, so she had me to fill the void that her heart cried out for, but I wasn't good enough, because soon after a man came to replace me, and then another baby, so the love I needed was lacking, and somehow I became the one who fell short because daddy was never there. He only cared about what the world could offer him. Money, cars, and material things, and not what's standing right in front of him. I was like that toy you want so bad on the store shelf, then 2 weeks later there's an upgrade, then back on the shelf to collect dust, wondering will I ever get a chance to get played with again. But that goes to say that, see, people in society, there's always an upgrade to something. I'm the oldest of seven. I'm seven, and then there's six underneath me. Um, but it's just like, the next child came, and the next child came, and it was no longer about Jasmine. It was just the next child, or the next child, or the next child. And there's tons of people who have big families, and some at some point someone's going to be lacking in some area. Somebody's not going to get all the attention that they need. Somebody is going to be feeling a need that they need something. Um, and like in society, we do the same thing with cell phones. Every time you turn around, there's a new cell phone out, and then you have like 10 cell phones sitting in your closet, and they're all like past. They're all new from the same year. It's just the upgrades just keep coming out, and you want to keep up with what's going on, but we can never be content on what we have. We always want more, the next best thing. That's probably why a lot of the relationships in society are breaking up today, because no, we don't want to have these long lasting relationships because we're not content on what we have. We need something more. If someone else comes who has something more than what we need, than what's right in front of us, instead of working on what's right in front of us, we grab onto the next best thing, because we're not content in what is right in front of us. We rather go out there and keep searching for something more, for something more. People don't, we will go our whole life, and miss out on what is right in front of us, right in front of us, instead of instead of being content. And it's sad. Like my poem says, it talks about my father. I always saw him chasing after like the money, the cars, material things. Like there's people in the world who will chase after the money, cars, and material things. Um, like I'm a human being. I'm a child. Like yeah, I'm right here. But we're not content in that. We want, all that stuff is good to have. But hello, I'm a person. Um, and I know there's tons of people out there who feel that, but and I want to explain this to you guys so that we don't go out there and make those mistakes, and we don't go out there and do the same things, because we can miss out on what's in front of us. Like I know for myself, um, I can say I learn from the best, because in life, I thought, okay, these are, the things that, you know, my parents are searching for, and they're looking for, in these things. And so I'm just going to go out And I fell in love with the money, and I fell in love with the clothes, and I fell in love with the material things, and I fell in love with all that stuff. And I got pregnant at 15, um, I kid you not, I know that if I would have had my baby at 15 years old, my baby would have been in a lot of pain, because I was in a lot of pain, and I wouldn't have been able to love my child, and I would have been too busy chasing all those things instead of being able to love my child, because I wasn't content. I wasn't content. I wasn't happy. We need to be content in what's right in front of us. We're constantly searching and searching for something else. Now, I'm going to tell you guys this, if you're not content within yourself, you need to find Jesus. Jesus can settle the content. He can make you happy. If you're not happy within yourself, you can give it to God. There's a scripture in the Bible, and it's my favorite scripture, Philippians 4:13. But before it, it's Philippians 4:11 through 13, and it basically talks about, it's Paul, and he's talking about how he learned to be content. And I'm actually going to tell you guys a story about, actually two stories after, in which, because God's been dealing with me with being content in things of the world, because we can miss out on a whole lot because we are not content. So the scripture says, Philippians 4:11 through 13, not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatsoever state I am therewith to be content. And I know both how to be abased, and I know how to be abound, and everywhere and in all things I am instructed, both to be full and to be hungry, both to be abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ, which strengthens me. Well, for a while, I still suffered with not being content in the things that I had. I still, I can, come to my grandmother and be happy of just, yes, my grandmother is a single grandmother raising her children all by herself, but I can be content in that because she is what I have. I kid and joke with my grandma all the time. I tell my grandma, if anything ever happened to you, God forbid you die, I'd be an orphan, because, this woman holds it down. Like, there's nothing that I've lacked or wanted that she has not been able to do for me. She is that woman. Like, she holds it down, and I really appreciate her. But one of my friends actually, I used to like feel really bad, and I used to talk to her, all the time, and she sat me down, and I said, I wish more of my family would have, been, there, or I could have been more around more of my family. I missed a lot of family get-togethers, and I missed a lot of, I don't even know the word for it, family reunions and stuff like that. Yeah. I missed a lot of those, and she said, well, what do you have, and if any of you guys know, like, I haven't put my brothers and sisters on here much, but they are my world. Like, they are my world. When I was younger, they are actually what kept me wanting to keep my sanity and stay alive, and not take my life or anything when I was younger. When I was dealing with my depression, they are what kept me going. I love them to death. Like, God forbid anything ever happened to my mother, like, I'd want to take them in. Like, I love them so much. Like, they are my world. Like, they make my day, everything. Like, they're my life, And, she taught me, like, even if you didn't have anything else, you have them. They love you. You have your grandmother. She loves you, Like, you have to, like, look at what you do have, and I've learned that a lot. Like, God told me to take up my cross and follow him, sell all my stuff except for what was needed. What was needed. And I left with a suitcase full of stuff, my computer, a guitar. That is it, and people, they get so unhappy because they don't have the next new Jordan, or the next new Nike shoe, the next new Louis Vuitton purse, the next new, I don't know, whatever the next new something. But, we get mad at these things. Um, but we're not content on like the people who are in our lives, and for what we already do have. Society's always pushing us to buy more. Well, what about the stuff you already do have? What about the things you already do have? Now I'm going to give you a story. When I was younger, I was actually two stories. When I was younger, I was on the streets, and it was me and the guy who I got pregnant by when I was 15. We were sitting outside of Back Bay Station in Boston, and there was a guy who asked me for a cigarette, and I really dissed him. I said, "Why am I gonna give you a cigarette? Like, for real?" Like, he threw up in front of us and everything. It was just so gross. I shoot him off, and he went across the street, and he sat there with his little blanket, his like homeless blanket that they give you if you go to the homeless shelters, and like a shopping cart. And so I really like listened to him cry and cry across the street, and I was just like, I never once like cared what happened to him. I never once asked him what happened to him, how he got there, anything. I laughed at him, and I don't say that to be a disrespectful, but when I was younger, I laughed at him. And I say this to say something. A few years later, I was a drug addict on the street, and walking around with scabies on my body, bouncing from house to house. And I mean, I had a place to live. I could come home to my grandma's house all the time. But I mean, I was a junkie. Like, I was a drug addict. Like, all I did was want to smoke and party and run the streets all day and come home. And my grandma's like, "This is not a hotel," because it's not. My grandma's house is not a hotel. But I was heading to the point where it's just like, okay, just be pure on the streets. I mean, there were times where I used to run away and I was on the streets. That was my life. I never thought that the man I laughed at, the man I looked down at, I would be in the same position. We never know where life's gonna take us. We never know where life's gonna take us. We don't. And I recently went on a journey to follow Jesus, you guys all know. And when I went to California, God told me to do to all people who come to me and ask me for something. And as soon as I get, to California, and I go to get me something to eat, and I go into McDonald's, and this man, as soon as I get into McDonald's, he says, "Can you buy me something to eat?" And I said, "Sure. No problem." Homeless man. You could tell he was bad on drugs. His nails were all yellow and gritty. And I bought him a burger. And we sat there and we ate a meal together. Me and this homeless man. And there was this woman, really high class, who he went up to go talk to, and she shooed him away. She dissed him. And then she looked at me and wondered why I was eating lunch with this man who was a drug addict. And she wondered. Well, homeless drug addict. I remember when I was her, looking down at a man who was drunk across the street and laughing at him. And I end up in the same place. And I would want someone to do the same thing for me, because I was there at that place once. I didn't know what the man's story was. All I knew is I was sitting with him and eating lunch with him and telling him about Jesus. But I say this, that we need to learn to be content within ourselves, love ourselves. I see tons of people who have eating disorders, and tons of women who don't like themselves. Honey, this is what God gave you. And if you can't love yourself, whether you're 250 pounds or whether you're 160 pounds, you will not be able to love yourself. I remember when I was actually recently, I just lost 20 pounds, and I haven't been working out or doing anything to lose the weight. Well, 30 pounds, give or take. I weighed 250, and now I weigh 220, and I'm not ashamed to say how much I weigh because it's just weight. Society puts too much emphasis on it because, God, I don't know. I don't know. But when I was younger, I had an eating disorder. I wasn't content on the way I looked. And because I wasn't content on how I was back then, I'd probably be ashamed of telling you my weight, back then. Now, I remember I had an eating disorder, and I went from 220 to balancing 160, 170 in between there in a matter of 2 months. I lost a whole bunch of weight, but I wasn't happy with myself. And I wasn't happy with myself. But because I wasn't happy with myself when I was 220, I wasn't happy with myself when I was 160. Now, if I eat today and I gain and I go back to 250, I'm going to be okay now. Because I didn't see anything wrong with me when I was 250. Now I'm 220. I don't see anything wrong with me being 220. We have to be content. I told you when I was on the journey, some days I'd have a full course meal. Some days I'd have a bowl of oatmeal. I was content. Now some people wouldn't be happy with just a bowl of oatmeal. But we need to be content in these things. Content in these things. And I'll give you another example. I actually met a friend, and I have an MP3 player. Someone stole my iPod when I was at school, and whatever. My grandma bought me an MP3 player. That's fine. I didn't care. It just, they all play music. All same thing. Well, I'm listening to it, and it was my birthday, and my friend was like, let me buy you an iPod. And I was like, why? I have an MP3 player. It plays all the same music. It does all, it plays the music. What do I need it? I just want to listen to my music. I was content in it. They felt uncomfortable about it. But why? It plays music. That's all I needed to do was play the music. That's all I wanted to do was listen to the music. But, before, to me, I had an iPod before. I knew what it was to have an iPod. I knew, all that stuff. I knew all the things that iPod can do. I've had an iPod. But I was content in my MP3 player, but they felt some way about it. Now, I want to give you guys a few challenges because I feel like this is very important. The first challenge is to learn how to be content in the things that you have. Maybe, if you can't learn how to be content in the things you have, maybe get something that is downgraded from what you have and learn how to be content with the downgrade. Some people are embarrassed of certain things, but life happens, things happen. I remember someone laughed at me one day because I was riding the bus rather than asking someone for a ride. I mean, I don't drive because I don't have my license, but I could have got a ride from someone. But it was fine. I can ride the bus. What happens to the day where your car breaks down and you don't have a ride? What are you going to do? How are you going to get to work? If nobody answers their phone, what are you going to do? You're going to ride the bus. You're going to do something. So we need to learn how to be content in these things. In the things in which we have and the things that are around us. We make fun of other people who don't have these things. For what? For what? We all had to grow from some point. We all had to get to some level. We all had to grow from some step. Some people were more fortunate to be born with everything that they need. But what happens to you when you lose everything? What happens to you when you lose everything? Then you won't understand how it feels to be downgraded, and then all those people that you done made fun of in your life for having not having all these things, then you're going to be feeling like really ignorant, would be more or less the word. So we need to learn how to be content. Another thing is, if there's someone around you that's less fortunate than you, or who doesn't understand something, that we need to help them. Maybe give someone $1, just spend time. Or, there was tons of times at school where I would just sit there, and there was a bus stop where all these homeless people would be, and whenever they were there, I would give them money. I remember one day there was this guy who was like on, you could tell he was on drugs, and all I did was sit there and talk to him, and he asked me to buy him a drink, and I went in the store and I bought him a soda, and he kind of drooled on me, but I mean, I washed my coat, but I gave him a hug, and it touched my life. It changed my life, and it probably changed his life. Some people just need you just to take that time out of your life just to talk to them. So we must learn how to be content on the things that we have. Um, and I mean, other things are going to come in our life. Of course we want to keep moving forward. But if we can't be content now on the things that we have, how are we going to be content on the things later? Like I said, when I had my eating disorder, I wasn't happy at 220 and I wasn't happy at 160. So now that I became content on how I was when I was 250, and I lost weight and now I'm 220, I'm content. Why? Because I liked myself then, and I grew to like myself then, and I grew to like myself now. And because I was content then, I can be content now. And I don't have to sit there and stress myself out like I used to. I don't have to feel bad like I used to. We feel bad on what we don't have because we're not appreciative on the things that we do have now. So I just challenge you to do those things. And I love you guys, and I hope that this affects your life, because society is really like, what is the next new big thing? Stop, smell the roses, do something. I love you guys, and have a wonderful and blessed day. Peace.